Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with another Talking Tactics show. This time, not talking about a defeat, thankfully, but talking about another game where we have snatched a draw from the jaws of victory, 2-2 against Brighton. Gareth, how are you doing? Just before we get all into it, another game where it just seems like the same old problems. Feels like Groundhog Day, we were saying before we came on the show.
Yeah, it's one of them things. It was very similar to the City performance, wasn't it? In the fact that, we looked pretty strong for a fair period of the game, but we just couldn't seem to see the game out. I know we did the City game, but slightly different. I just didn't think we were consistent enough, throughout the game. I think that period, as we discussed again a minute ago, that period sort of just after half time, 60 minutes onwards, we let Brighton back into the game. And that's, especially at home, we've got to be seeing that out.
100%. And I mean, yes, City, we managed to kind of by hook or by crook get through that game. I think some of the tactical tweaks that we made and the I guess Man City not necessarily having the effect that they might have wanted off the bench probably contributed to that victory. But I look back to Bournemouth at home where the substitutions caused issues. Nottingham Forest away where the substitutions caused us issues and really turned the game. Ipswich where we were winning 2-1 and we let them back in the game to draw 2-2. These games now are just creeping up and up and up. And it's an Aston Villa side that, yes, as we've said, for 60 minutes or so of that game, we were pretty effective. We were getting into good positions. We were causing problems. But in the other 30 minutes, the key moments, beginning and end of games, we're just not reacting very well to, I guess, the initial tactical setup of the opposition, and then the changes that they're making and the impact that those substitutions are having.
Yeah, almost like we're doing it a bit too late. As we discussed again previously, sort of you could bank on Emery making substitutions on 60 minutes. What come what may, there seem to be substitutions. We've mentioned it before. On 60 minutes, he was making substitutions, and that was usually two or three. It wasn't just, sort of the odd one that it seems like, for me now, it seems like he's reacting rather than being sort of proactive into these sorts of games. We're sort of reacting to what's going on, and other managers that we've seen in the past, Ruben Amorim at Manchester United, for example, recently, not frightened to make changes early on because he's not liking what he's seeing. I do think the Pau Torres, as we discussed again, the Pau Torres substitution really threw a spanner in the works early on. I think it must have changed his mindset as opposed to when those substitutions will be made in the second half. That's the only thing that I can really think of. But yeah, seems to me he's being more reactive rather than proactive at the minute.
Yeah, and we said that before we get into all the stats and everything and all the viz that you've done. We said, early Unai Emery would have made changes when he needed to, be it half time, be it in the first half, be it triple substitutions after 50 minutes, 60 minutes. You could see him freshening things up. And I don't know whether it's sometimes managers get into this kind of setup where they've been in the club for a while, where they, I don't know, like it used to be with Dean Smith as well, where he kind of make the double substitution after the goal had gone in from the opposition, and then you think, well, what are those substitutions going to do? Why didn't you do that before when you could clearly see there was an element of players struggling to keep hold of the game or keep control of the game, that surely the substitutions done then wouldn't have made the situation any worse. And then you're asking them to produce something with 10 minutes to go as opposed to 20 minutes to go. It just seems bizarre to me that he's just not, that's not happening. And but equally, yeah.
But that's exactly what I mean. He's being reactive rather than proactive.
Yeah, precisely. Reactive as opposed to proactive. But it's just difficult to put my finger on why. You know, the options he had with Barkley and Onana. You know, Onana with 10 minutes to go, he's not going to get into the game as well as an Onana with 20 minutes to go. You know, Matson with 10 minutes to go, give him an opportunity to get used to the pace of the game, give him an opportunity to run at defenders. Yes, I know he had the situation of having to take Pau Torres off, but the tentativeness just it just seems a little bit bizarre to me. You know, when it just seems I don't know what it is with managers where I guess you can criticize him. If we'd have conceded and he'd have made those subs, people would have said, "Well, why take those players off?" Of course, you're in one of those catch-22 situations. However, the past games that we've got to go off are the fact that we've been in these situations lots before, as I've listed. So you would think that he would see that and make the changes because, as I said, pre Unai Emery as well, wouldn't be afraid to make the substitutions at different times. And he also wouldn't have been afraid to go, right, we need to shut up shop here. We need to go six at the back. I remember so many times just to win the game, he would just do that and bring extra defenders on or pull Kamara back into central defence or whatever just to get the win over the line. And it just seems to me that he's just being a bit stubborn in this open football and trying to play this kind of really penetrative football and committing players forward, but it's costing us at the back.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be like you say. Yeah, he used to react, didn't he, and sort of go to the six at the back. I think the timing of the Morgan Rogers goal meant that he couldn't shut up shop, but yet he doesn't want to change his style sort of going forward, as you rightly say. And I think that's the conundrum that he's caught in. But especially now, look at the pace of some of these players nowadays in modern football. Even if you're 2-1 up, you still want to play your football. Like we've seen it at Tottenham. They still want to play their football, but yet they're in the same situation in many respects. They're getting caught out. They're scoring plenty of goals, but they're also conceding them. And it's a very similar sort of situation, isn't it? Yeah, does he shut up shop after the Morgan Rogers goal? No, he doesn't have to.
No, like he doesn't have to.
But drop into a 4-1-4-1 and just drop, make sure Rogers is more defensive on that left-hand side and make sure Bailey is more on the right-hand side. Just change it up a little bit. Even put Matson on instead of Bailey on that right-hand side and just keep the shape. But, yeah, it's a conundrum he's got, I think.
Yeah. And again, sorry we're going on and ranting on, but I just need to. Like, the situation of playing players in different positions, right? So you're playing Ezri Konsa at right back, which takes his effectiveness at centre back away, and also means that he's not as good a right back. And he had a torrid time at right back yesterday. You're putting Carlos in, who doesn't deal very well with players with mobility, with players that move into different areas and pull him away from the defensive line. So there you're suffering there. And then he makes a substitution and takes Leon Bailey off, who I thought was pretty sharp yesterday. Maybe he's coming back into some fitness. But he takes John McGinn out of that central area where McGinn's effective and winning us free kicks and getting involved in the game from a central perspective and putting him out on the right, which again nullifies his threat in that position. So again, it just seems like those decisions that he's making in terms of taking players out of their most comfortable positions and putting them into a position that's less comfortable to them is bizarre to me again.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. It's a lot of it is sort of the game management side of things, isn't it? Like you're saying, it's almost not a personnel thing. It's almost like a positional thing, isn't it? Like you say, just keep those players in the right. It's kind of difficult because what do you take at 2-1? You're not guaranteed to win the game as such. So what do? Do you take off a Morgan Rogers and replace him sort of with a more defensive mind? Do you put an extra man in midfield, for example, and go in a 4-3? I don't know. I think the difference is it just shows you that even though Matty Cash has had a bit of authority, it just shows you that taking that positional player, if you like, a traditional right back out of the system can mess things up a little bit. And I thought Konsa at right back, I thought was horrendous yesterday, to be honest. I think, why not play Negelevic? Stick him on at right back, and then at least you're keeping the shape a little bit there. You're keeping that back four intact because Konsa just didn't deal with it, did he, at all?
No, and yeah, Yeah, he really didn't. And look, you're playing against two very, very pacey wide men. You know, you see off. Well, you didn't quite see off a Dingra, but because he scored, but Dingra goes off, and then Mitoma's coming on, which just
You dread
doesn't
the
help
worst,
you in
don't
any
you?
way, shape, or form. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
it's a
dreaded the worst
frustrating
when I
one.
saw Matoma coming on. I thought this is not going to win. And luckily, he wasn't that effective, was he? But I just think he's that sort of player that Konsa is a centre back. I don't think we can get away from that. I don't think a right back is not what he is he?
No, no. Right, we've ranted on for 10 minutes there without getting any statistics on. So let's fire through what we've got. So the tail of the tape in terms of all of the match stats. Anything to discuss here? Anything that really stands out to you?
61% of our possession was in the Brighton final third. That's what Field Tilt tells us. So just the 39% for Brighton. Now, did we make the most of it? We could probably say that we didn't, but aerial wins are exactly the same. The pressing intensity from both sides is quite the same. But look at Brighton's interceptions, and their defensive numbers are reasonably pretty good, and 13 corners from us. Can we make more of them set pieces? Should we be? We probably should. One thing I did take a lot of it out from was look at the average goal kick length from Emi Martinez there. We're usually in the 20s, the 24s. We're almost double that. So it just tells you how much longer he went, how much more he went longer, as it were. So, yeah, it was quite interesting for me, that.
Yeah. Well, there were some, you could noticeably see that Watkins was getting some joy off Van Heck. He was targeting him and he was doing really well in that, kind of isolating him and then holding it up and bringing players in or getting flick on. So that was really good in terms of why Emi Martinez decided to go long, because it took some of that pressure off. The interception side of thing, you could see it in that second half. Tielemans would try and play these, really intricate passes, which, okay, he's got that quality. He's very good at it. The problem is where and when he was trying to do it and how many players we had committed forward, because then with it getting intercepted, Brighton were just straight on it, straight through. And then they had Minte on the right-hand side, Matoma on the left-hand side, Rutter in the middle. And the pace that they went through us, we couldn't we were just scrambling at times. And that was a problem. And that's where, look, I don't want to sort of go back to past players, but Luiz would probably be a little bit more controlled in those 2-1 situations and maybe not try and play those at high risk passes that maybe Tielemans tries to do, later on in games.
I think the difference with that, Rich, I would say yes, I agree with your point, but I think then we were accusing them of playing sideways too much.
Absolutely, yeah, and
We're
being
not,
too casual.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think I was really, really surprised that Onana didn't start the game, because I think we're a better team with Onana in it. I still think we could play a 4-3-3 with Tielemans, Kamara, and Onana in it. I think that is our best midfield, and Rodgers, Watkins, and Bailey up top. And then in that shape, then we've talked about it so many times. I've pushed it, even when under Steven Gerrard, I think at once, is that in a 4-4-1, 4-1, or 4-3-3, when you're in a defensive shape, you can play a 4-1-4-1. So you're more defensively rigid. And you've got Kamara, who, let's be honest, has been superb since he's come back. His screening qualities in front of that back four. They won the ball back countless times yesterday. It was fantastic. I don't understand why we don't do that. And then, but we're almost too concerned with getting forward as quickly as we possible, like you say, with those Tielemans through balls. But if it's not working, then let's go wide. Let's try and do something a little bit different. I think the transitions are a problem for Villa. I really do. Is that going from attack to defence and then vice versa, I think is becoming a problem.
Yeah. Quick look at the sonars in terms of pass direction and frequency. Anything here that stands out to you?
I think it's just a question of Watkins is much further forward, and that indicates those longer balls. That means he's spending more time in those centres. So, he's not sort of coming on the halfway line where we'd used to see him. But, yeah, the Rodgers and the Leon Baileys of the team sort of, in decent positions there. Kamara having to do a lot more passing than what Yuri Tielemans did, by the way, it seemed. And it's just that little bit of a compact midfield. And I think, therefore, if you do play in a 4-1 or 4-3-3, Kamara is in front, is central there, and you've got Torres and you've got Onana on the other side of him. Now, we saw that before. I can't remember what games, but it worked really, really well. And it provided stability, and it allowed both fullbacks to get forwards. That's not quite been happening lately.
No, and that looks to me like Torres and Carlos, or whether it was Mings after Torres went off. exposed there, man. I mean, I don't like that, particularly with Carlos being
There
potentially.
was a lot of distance. There was, on
Yeah,
average, there was a lot of distance between the two defensive and midfield units. Yeah.
yeah. Brighton, in terms of the contrast.
Yeah, I mean, ignore Adingra down the bottom left there. I don't know what Opta were playing at with the average positions, but something's gone awry there. But yeah, I mean, you can see where they were targeting the right-hand side. You can clearly see that there's a lot of passing combinations between Lamptey and Adingra. Sorry, who's that up there? I can't see.
Brajan Gruda, is it?
Yeah. So, and that was those combinations, and they were able to do that. And the pressing intensity from them was really good. You can see the 4-2-3-1. You can clearly see the two central midfielders in a double pivot, and that's why it's supposed to work.
Yeah. Networks. So obviously, just putting that together. Anything again that you noticed with the way that we were passing, the way that Brighton were passing?
Yeah, it's difficult because minutes 1 to 20, obviously, because Torres went off on the 20th minute, but you can pretty much see the shape there again. And look where we're building up more on the right-hand side, which is by far our weakest side. You've not got an orthodox right back there. Why are we not playing down that left-hand side? Like, that was our strength. And we didn't tend to do that as much.
Yeah. I don't know whether it was because Lamptey's so quick that they thought maybe, he beat Rodgers for pace a couple of times. He would beat Digne for pace. Maybe they thought they would get exposed, but obviously our chance. Yeah. Agreed.
We're the ones that have got to do that attacking network, and it just didn't. I just didn't know. We kept going through Konsa quite a lot and back into Kamara. I just didn't see what it was about. And you can see the distances between Kamara and Tielemans there in central midfield. It's not good enough.
Too big. Yeah. I mean, we said as well, there was one time where Konsa, fair play to him, absolutely broke his neck to overlap Leon Bailey, like screaming for the ball. Must have been. Bailey feeds him in, and then he just turns back and passes it all the way back.
Last night during the game, we discussed the incident on the group, and it was just cross it.
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen, he gets blocked and it goes out for a corner, or you overhit it and it goes out to the left-hand side and Rodgers picks it up. Just to do all of that work and then just to turn back and pass it all the way back to Kamara. I mean, he didn't even play it to Leon Bailey, who'd run on. Like, I don't know, he's clearly not a right back, and that's the problem. Sometimes you're going to take the game into your own hands as well, I feel, in certain situations. And yeah, it just didn't seem balanced at all.
I think the trouble is, we've seen it before, Rich, where we had Kamara used to drop into that right space, didn't he? Almost right back, and allow Matty Cash to go onwards a little bit. And we've seemed to have lost that.
Yeah, definitely. Match, the shot map and the XG. Anything to talk about here? 20 shots, only 4 on target though.
Yeah, and I
guess that's the big one.
Yeah, that's half the problem in it. You've hit the nail on the head. It's 20 shots at home and 4 on target. You've got to be doing a little bit better than that. And there were other chances, missed the big chance, and yeah, just kind of a bit hit and miss again.
It seemed like fair play to Brighton, but it seemed like that they got a lot of last-ditch blocks in, or headers where we'd be in a great position to cross it, maybe put the cross in, but they would then block it out for the corner, or it would hit the first man. And it's just that care and attention. And I absolutely love Morgan Rodgers, and we were kind of having a debate in the group, but it's where I feel that his improvement needs to be made in the care and attention with the final pass, or beating that last man. He just tends to just run straight into them. And that's where he becomes a little bit of a frustration.
Yeah, and I think we had this argument with JJ, didn't we, a couple of years ago, where his ball carrying, like Morgan Rodgers, was fantastic. He gets into the box, and then, like you say, it's that final pass, kind of a little bit lack, or it's behind someone, or it hits that man. There's no sort of variation in that, but you're dead right. That's one thing he needs to improve upon.
Yeah. As brilliant as he is, and look, we've relied on him, Watkins, and Duran for all of our goals, pretty much, which tells its own story. Watkins gets a lot of criticism, some of it fair. Rodgers again gets some criticism for his kind of being a bit more rugged and rough around the edges, but No goals from Bailey, no goals from McGinn, hardly any goals from Tielemans, only 2 goals in the Premier League from Onana. Ross Barkley's the main one who's contributed goals, and he hardly ever plays. So, I mean, that just tells you everything that you need to know about what's not happening at the minute.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, we need more goals from elsewhere. Set pieces we picked up upon as well. We're a big side. We should be doing better.
Yeah, that timeline and the XG. Again, you mentioned before we came on about the kind of turnaround around that 60th, 65th minute, and where Brighton started to step it up.
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about, there was 12 minutes of added time on because of injuries and so forth, and we had 5 shots in from 45 up until the plus 12. So we had plenty of shots within that time. You can see the big shoot up there just after the 40th minute sort of thing. And we sort of ended the half quite well, and then we started the half quite well because the second half quite well because we then scored the goal. And look, we're starting to increase our shot. We had a few shots up there, but then we just after the 60th minute you can see it there. You start to let Brighton back into the game. Their momentum builds, and sure enough, on 81 minutes they score through Tariq Lamptey. And again, even after that, they had a few opportunities after that. So we were kind of lucky in a few ways.
Yeah. Well, we were saying, they could really win this game, and I know both teams did have some opportunities right at the death, but yeah, it was looking pretty hairy at one point. The xThreat timeline, anything again that this is telling us?
Well, it almost correlates well with the XG timeline, doesn't it? We can see that, from sort of 60 minutes onwards, we don't have a great deal of expected threat momentum, and Brighton do. And sure enough, even when they've scored that goal, we see on the XG timeline after that time, the goal, they were sort of having some shots. They were still coming into the game. And again, there we can see it right at the end, so not far after the goal. They're still sort of providing that threat, and they were the better team in the latter stages of the game.
Yeah. We've got this one back again, the expected threat sort of bar chart. Leon Bailey, like I said, I thought he looked pretty sharp. I thought he looked pretty decent in terms of he just needs a goal, doesn't he? What seems to happen at the moment is teams have learned off of Leon Bailey in that he'll get past the first man, he'll cut inside from the first man, and straight away there's another man there ready to pounce, and he then has to take an extra touch to try and get away from them. And by the time he's done that, he's too far out, or he's not at the right angle to play that, that either that curling cross or hit that curling shot. And that's where he probably needs to adapt his game. And I actually wish he'd go out around the outside more and use his right foot.
You just took the words exactly out of my mouth and I was going to reply. I want to see here. The reason I highlighted this is because I thought he was like you. I thought he was quite impressive. He wasn't brilliant, but he was quite impressive in coming back to sort of some sort of form. And he was clearly the threat. But do we use him enough? Probably not. Can he go on the outside and provide a right foot cross? Yes, he probably could. Provide that little bit of trickery. But like you say, you know what he's going to do. We all know that as fans sitting in the stadium, so managers and opposition players are always going to know this. He always cuts inside. He's always looking to do that left-footed curler. He's got to be changing that up a little bit.
And also, loads of the assists that he's got have been from thinking, sod this, I'm just going to go around on my right foot and put it in with my right foot. And he like Ipswich this season, I know he hasn't had many assists, but Ipswich this season, right-footed cross, Ollie Watkins heads it in. Countless times last season, ball goes down the outside, cuts it back, and the player puts it in. It's like, yes, if you want to be a really effective winger, we know most of the time, 80% of the time, even if it's 80% of the time you come inside on your left foot, if it's 20% that you're going outside on the right foot, at least that produces enough doubt in the defender's mind to think, well, this time he might go out on the outside. So, but if you're doing it 100% of the time, you're easy to play against.
Yeah, I agree. He's suffering for some sort of form drop, isn't he? He doesn't look right in 100%. And I do think the balancing wide there is something that needs to be addressed, to be honest. Because as much as we like Morgan Rogers and Leon Bailey, there seems to be that sort of imbalance there, doesn't there, where somebody's coming inside or somebody's not going on the outside. And don't forget, well, another issue that I do have is that if one of them has got the ball, there doesn't seem to be many crosses from these wingers. It's always Luca Digne. There's no other crosses from anybody else, barely. And also, when that happens, the wider fullback, the wider Bailey are not into the box.
No,
they're always on the outside of the box. And Morgan Rogers is the same, tends to stay outside. The amount of times we saw Ollie Watkins out wide left receiving the ball, there was a massive gap. Van Hecker and Lewis Dunk had nobody to mark for the majority of that game when the ball was out wide. That needs to change.
Yeah. It's a surprise we managed to have like 20-odd shots, but I guess the fact that not many of them are on target tells its own story, that we're either shooting from angles or areas that are difficult to score from, or that, you know, we're getting into a position and there's more bodies in the box because we've waited too long, or we haven't given the defence enough players to think about, to concentrate on. You know, if you're flooding the box with McGinn, Rogers, Bailey, Watkins, you know, a late runner from maybe a Tielemans, then you're giving the defence more options to think about. But if you've only got Watkins and Bailey in the box, then there's no wonder the shot's going to get blocked, because there's only two players to concentrate on.
You know, it barely even looks like that at times. It's usually just Ollie Watkins in there. And people, the likes of Tielemans and Morgan Rogers, they tend to sort of hang back a little bit, don't they, on the edge of the box, and hopefully they can smash one in from there. But yeah, it just needs to be a little bit different. We're being hypercritical, of course, because I think we all think that we should have won that game and seen it out.
Yeah,
it's got to be a bit better. Yeah.
I will fly through. I won't do every single one, but just to look at the defensive out of possession, defensive shape, and where we were, where Brighton were. Anything again to talk about here?
No, but Brighton has a good defensive shape, nice and narrow. You know, João Pedro coming back and sort of helping out in those areas, whereas we're a little bit more expansive there. And I just think, again, we're at home. Look how deep we are. Average defensive height of 38 meters. You know, that is still quite deep, and we're used to being just that little bit higher than that. And yeah, again, that needs to improve. And we've talked about gaps before. Look at the gap between sort of you know, the midfield and Ollie Watkins, Rogers, you know, and Tielemans. It's just got to be a little bit more organised, I think.
Yeah, that chaos word seems to keep coming into it at the moment, and it does seem like we're a bit chaotic at the back and a bit chaotic moving forwards. And I guess maybe sometimes last season, those early goals, you know, when we got off to such a great start, 1-0, 2-0 up, sometimes masked that. But obviously goals change games. So it means the other team has to be more chaotic because they have to try and get into the game. Whereas at the minute, you look at all these goals that we concede in first, and it's not even we're conceding first. We're literally conceding off the opposition team's first shot. I mean, that's just giving yourself so much more work to do, and having to then commit more men forward, commit more bodies into different positions that they might not be used to, take that extra man on. It's just, it doesn't seem like that's how Unai Emery would want to play either.
No, not as organised as what we're used to seeing.
Yeah. Just finish up with the kind of control zones. I mean, like I said, lots of the parts of the pitch we controlled in this sense. Anything that you kind of discuss here?
No, I mean, the visual, the graphics tells you everything, doesn't it? In that we're controlling the vast majority of our own and the middle thirds, but. This is where we've just got to be a little bit better and start controlling, or having a bit more control further forwards.
Yes, definitely. What do you think? Just to finish up, how do you think he puts this right? What do we need to do from your perspective as like an analyst? What would you be saying in terms of what Villa need to do to put it right?
I would get Onana back in the midfield for a start. I think you either play a 4-3-3, and there the trouble is that then you're going to leave out your captain probably. So what do you do? Do you play? Do you carry on with the 4-4-1-1, which probably works the best, and have McGinn in behind Ollie Watkins, so providing he is then in central areas and he will drop back and defend if you like. Try and get a little bit more out of Leon Bailey. I think the longer ball into Watkins kind of worked reasonably well. It's just a little bit worrying that we're not putting away chances, especially at home. Away is hard, but at home we've got to be doing better than that. And I think that's just what I think. Cash needs to come back. I think I'd never thought I'd say, and I'm not degrading him, but I think in the shape, as it were, you either play an orthodox right back or you do something different, which I don't know what. you need to have a right back in that system so that Ezri can go more central, I think.
Yeah, if there was to, I know we're going to do maybe a couple of shows on transfer potential options, or like a bit of a scouting network, a scouting series across the window, looking at players that might improve Aston Villa in a hypothetical sense. But is it as simple as right back and wide areas that we need strengthening, or now the centre back issue could be there? Where do we need to where would kind of a quick fix be in terms of bringing a player in?
Yeah, it's hard, especially in January when the market is notoriously difficult to get players in. I mean, I think we should have probably took Baena from Villarreal in the summer. I think that was our opportunity to do that. I just think we need more up top. I think you need another centre forward in there, because for the sake of the squad more than anything, especially in wide areas. I think Leon Bailey will come good. How much time, though, do you give him to come good? Do you give him? He will be there for the rest of the season, you would imagine. But yeah, for me, it's wide areas where we need to be better, because I think Dina at left back, I think he's a safe option. I think he's played well. You've got to have a right back there that's going to get up and down as well. And it's more to do with shape and personnel than it is to bring players in. I think we've got the players to do well. It's just a case of getting it right, isn't it?
That's it. We were all waxing lyrical about the options that Unai Emery had in the summer and how he could change it up, and this player and that player, and when this player comes back fit, that look how good we'll be. And it just hasn't quite clicked in that sense. And it seems like it's an easy fix. Put more chances away and concede less goals, but putting that into practice just seems like it's really difficult at the moment. And it seems more like moments in games. We're not controlling those moments. We're not controlling the first 10, and we're not controlling the last 15. And those are the key periods of games at the minute. Whereas maybe 18 months ago, those were the areas that we were controlling, because we might lose a goal in sort of the middle period of the game, but we'd finish the game strong and win it, or we'd already be 2-0 up. So the team, yes, they might have a spell in the game, which every team does, but we get ourselves through it. Whereas at the minute, it's us that are having to chase the game in the middle third, or middle half of the game, and then we're running out of steam at the end, and it's costing us. So yeah, you're right. It's probably not necessarily too much about bringing players in. It's about controlling the moments in games and turning them into our favour.
Yeah, we've got players that are doing jobs. You sort of got Pau Torres, who's able to build up from the back. Got the world's #1 goalkeeper. You've got Kamara breaking up, playing midfield, doing really well. You've got Morgan Rogers carrying the ball. You've got a good centre forward in Watkins and Duran who can score goals. Why are we not doing that? Why have we drifted away from playing through central areas, receiving on the half turn and going with Morgan Rogers? Because that's what we spoke about last week. That's what worked really well. And we seem to have gone away from that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we get it back quickly, because this second half of the season, we didn't finish last season, second half of the season too well. We kind of stumbled over the line because of the great work we did in the first half of the season. Hopefully this time round, we've had a satisfactory start to this season, maybe slightly less than satisfactory in the Premier League, brilliant in the Champions League. Hopefully we can end the season strong. This second half of the season we can, because we certainly need to. But we'll be here all the way through, Gareth, bringing us Talking Tactics. Thank you for all your help this year. Have a great 2025. And to you guys out there as well, have a fantastic 2025. Happy New Year to you all. As you've got it on there, Gareth, we've set up your little name and tag underneath. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, all the Villa stuff is at One Villa Analysis, and I'll retweet it on at that Gareth AJC as well. We're going to be doing some transfer stuff as well on there, so keep your eyes out.
Brilliant stuff, mate. Well, I will be back very soon. I'm going to try and do a daily show talking about the transfers, rumours, and as we say, me and Gareth are going to do some profile of players that might improve Villa, bit of a scouting series as well over the January transfer window as well. So keep your eyes peeled on that, and potentially a little bit of a tactical show on a pre-match show as well to come. So lots of plans for 2025 for the channel. Thank you for all your support this year, and hope you've enjoyed what we've done. We'll see you very, very soon for preview of the Leicester game and obviously match reaction to that, talking tactics and all that jazz. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as always, remember, we'll follow the Villa.